Brought to you by Generator Industries and Moody Gardens Conservation Program.
Catastrophic flooding, severe wind, storm surge. These weather conditions have changed the lives of Southeast Texans forever.
It only takes one hurricane or even a tropical storm to cause a major disaster.
We have to be ready as we're going to be hit.
Tonight, the entire Channel 2 severe weather team with the biggest threats to our area and what we've learned from past storms. Plus, the information you and your family need to stay safe all season long.
From KPRC Channel 2 News, this is the 2019 Hurricane and Flood Survival Guide. Here's Chief Meteorologist Frank Billingsley.
This year, the Atlantic hurricane season outlook calls for a near normal season with a 70% chance of 9 to 15 named storms. The National Hurricane Center says 4 to 8 of those will become hurricanes with top winds of at least 74 miles per hour. And the potential is there for 2 to 4 major hurricanes reaching Category 3, 4, or 5 status. There were 15 named Atlantic storms last hurricane season, the strongest Florence and Michael. Hurricane Florence was the 9th most destructive storm in terms of property damage to hit the United States. Florence made landfall in North Carolina as a high Category 1 hurricane with winds of about 90 miles per hour. The hurricane caused $24 billion in damage in 4 states, spawning 44 tornadoes and blamed for more than 50 deaths. Just over a month later, Hurricane Michael grew into the strongest storm to ever hit Florida. The Category 5 storm brought catastrophic storm surge, destructive winds up to 160 miles per hour, ripping off roofs and tearing down power lines. Flooding left neighborhoods under feet of water. And while Southeast Texas was fortunate to get a break last hurricane season, we've been ground zero for some of the most deadly and damaging tropical disasters in U.S. history. From the infamous 1900 hurricane that leveled Galveston to our most recent megastorm, Hurricane Harvey, more than a century of storms that are staggering when you consider the numbers. For example, 6,000, the estimated death toll from the Category 4 hurricane that struck Galveston on September 8, 1900. A surprise storm packing 135-mile-per-hour winds and a 15-foot storm surge. The island completely submerged, completely destroyed. It stands as the deadliest natural disaster in our nation's history. And it prompted the construction of the now famous seawall that helps to protect the island from landfalling storms to this day. 43, the number of inches of rain that fell in Alvin during Tropical Storm Claudette in one July day in 1979.
High winds and heavy rain whipped through this bait camp on Keith Lake.
The most significant 24-hour rainfall event in recorded U.S. history until last year, when 49 inches of rain fell on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. 30,000, the number of people forced into shelters by Tropical Storm Allison in 2001.
40 years in this area, never have we had flooding like this.
The storm flooded 73,000 homes in Harris County and caused $5 billion in property damage. And finally, 27 trillion, the number of gallons of water that fell from the sky during Hurricane Harvey. Up to 5 feet of rain from Houston to Beaumont, 500,000 flooded cars, 300,000 flooded structures, 40,000 people evacuated in 30,000 water rescues.
Our whole neighborhood is flooded.
The death toll, 68. It is our nation's greatest tropical rainfall event, and at $125 billion in damage, second only to Hurricane Katrina in financial cost. Based on data going back to 1900, we can expect a hurricane or tropical storm to hit somewhere along the Texas coast in 8 out of every 10 years. Over the last 5 years, 10 storm names have been retired. In 2015, Erica and Joaquin. In 2016, Matthew and Otto. 4 storms in 2017, Harvey, Irma, Maria, and Nate. And last year, Florence and Michael. Storm names are retired if they were so deadly or destructive that the future use of the name would be insensitive.
Frank, Hurricane Harvey certainly fits that billing. Southeast Texas is still recovering from that massive storm nearly 2 years later. Meanwhile, county and city crews are making improvements to bayous like this one with hopes of easing the impact of the next storm. But is it enough?
It's the disaster we will never forget. Water everywhere, overflowing bayous leading to flooded streets and flooded homes during and after Hurricane Harvey.
We just didn't know we was going to get this bad.
Since that massive flood, individual homeowners are taking action. Harris County Flood Control and the City of Houston have been working to make changes with hopes of better handling the next big flood event.
We've been working incredibly hard to move our flood control projects forward. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars on projects, detention basins that hold hundreds of Olympic swimming pools worth of water, bayou widenings, channel widenings, and deepenings all throughout our community, from Kashmir Gardens to the Greens Point area to Brays Bayou, all throughout.
Just last month, Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo announced the completion of the Hunting Bayou Detention Basin, a 1,000-acre stormwater storage system. But Hidalgo recognizes this project is one of many that still need to be completed.
For decades, not enough was invested in flood control, so we've got catching up to do, but we will continue this work because it's important to the resilience of our community.
Rivers were another problem during Harvey. All of that rain and runoff forced area rivers out of their banks, and releases from rising lakes send millions of gallons of water downstream and into people's homes.
That's Mr. Scaredy Cat.
People like John McClelland. 2 years after Hurricane Harvey, McClelland, a veteran, and his wife now call this fifth-wheel trailer home. Their humble home along the West Fork of the San Jacinto River was destroyed by the flood following the storm.
We had 9 foot of water, and it pretty well wiped out everything. I mean, the house was paid for, everything in it was paid for, and the house was like new.
The couple spent the first year dealing with the city and FEMA to get the funds to fix their home, but ultimately they were forced to rebuild. They had some flood insurance, an amount they thought they could afford on a fixed income, but...
And then FEMA comes along and they says, well, your $75,000 worth of insurance covered your damage, so we're not giving you anything.
A year after the storm, with some grants and savings, construction began on their new home, on the same lot, much higher, and much later than they expected.
I figured maybe 6 to 9 months, and we're coming up on 2 years.
But there is hope that the wait will soon be over.
We're built on top of the old slab.
The couple hopes to move into their finished home late this summer, and has this advice for anyone who may be moving to the area.
Get plenty of flood insurance, and if possible, be at least in the 500-year floodplain. Don't move into the 100-year.
Our coverage of ongoing flood projects in Harris County continues with a special primetime edition of Houston Newsmakers. We're going to be finding out when those projects will be finished and where those federal and state dollars marked for recovery are being used. That's later on at the bottom of the hour. For now, our Britta Merwin is in Galveston, where she finds out from county and city officials there how they are preparing for hurricane season.
Kimbrough, Galveston is no stranger to hurricanes and storm surge, which can cause devastating flooding. According to the National Weather Service, Galveston has been hit 9 times by a Category 1 or stronger storm. And city and county leaders want people here to be ready for number 10.
From what I've seen, it's not going to be too bad of a year, but it only takes one.
One hurricane or one tropical storm can spell disaster for people living along the coast. That's why leaders have been preparing those on Galveston Island. They've hosted meetings, posted notices on water bills, and left flyers at grocery stores to remind residents to be prepared before the storm hits.
Anybody that's lived here for a while, they know what to do, but it seems like, and I'm a victim of it myself, we tend to put things off until you see something, and then you try to run out and get your water, get your supplies, make your plans where you're going. All that has to be really done ahead of time.
Although some believe they can weather the storm at home, city and county officials are reminding them that when an evacuation order is issued, it's for a reason.
Hurricanes are not a time for a party. They are a time to get serious and prepare to evacuate. Our only concern is that as more time passes after a major storm, people tend to forget what exactly happened. So we would just want them to pay attention and listen to the officials and take the advice if asked to evacuate.
The last time a major hurricane hit the island was Ike in 2008. The storm brought a 20-foot wall of water that flooded 80% of the city. It left thousands homeless. Despite the devastation, Galveston vowed to rebuild and make changes to mitigate flooding.
The city of Galveston, since Hurricane Ike, has made tremendous improvements in their infrastructure as far as the water system is concerned, the sewer system, and some of our structures.
Then in 2017, there was Harvey. Although the storm didn't make landfall on the island, it caused widespread flooding and damaged many homes. The The island is still working to this day to complete projects that will reduce flooding, but funding is tight.
Projects to help mitigate the flooding that we saw after Harvey are ongoing, but nothing has been completed yet.
If we had blank checks, we wouldn't have problems.
Projects may be unfinished, but residents and leaders alike all have the same message about the real threat of a hurricane when you live right next to the water.
You know, it's the cost of living on the coast. You just got to be ready.
Being ready is key. In a disaster, time is valuable. So, still ahead, we start a clock and give 6 members of our team 30 seconds each to share critical information you need to protect your home, your family, and your pets. It's 3 minutes you don't want to miss.
But first,
90% of all hurricane deaths result from storm surge. A storm surge can reach over 20 feet high and extend nearly 100 miles. And it's important to remember, whether it's from surge or other types of flooding, it only takes 6 inches of water to knock a person off their feet. Twice that could carry away a small car.
KPRC's Hurricane and Flood Survival Guide continues next. Brought to you by Generator Industries and Moody Gardens Conservation Program.
Not every storm's going to give you a week. You can have 3 to 4 days notice.
We can't say this enough. Be prepared. Here's a fact. All 4 Category 5 hurricanes to make landfall in the U.S. were tropical storms just 3 days earlier.
We're at the American Red Cross right here in Houston to talk about one of the most important things you can do to get ready for hurricane season, and that is your hurricane supply kit. Joining me today from the Red Cross, Eklund DeRusso, to talk about exactly what you need in your kit. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get to it. What do we need?
Okay, well, pretty much everything you see on this table.
Okay, which is a lot.
It is a lot. Let's start first with this gallon jug of water here. What you want to do is have enough water for you and your family for about 3 days.
So probably the gallon jug and then cases of water to get by.
Cases of water, absolutely. We also have a first aid kit, flashlight, some duct tape because that's always useful.
Absolutely.
And then we have our giant American Red Cross emergency preparedness kit, which will include almost everything on this table.
Which is a lot, as you mentioned, and you really don't have to do the thinking yourself. American Red Cross has already done that for you, so you can go online and pick up this entire kit, everything that you do need, one-stop shopping, basically.
Absolutely. So if you go to redcross.org, it's right there. And if maybe this is too much for you, maybe you already have some of these items, you can pick up the smaller version, which is an emergency response pack that has a lot of these things that maybe we don't keep on the regular.
All right, and one thing that people probably don't think about too much, that is a digital kit.
Absolutely. I mean, I think pretty much everyone has a telephone, right?
Yes.
Little cell phone here. So in order to keep that charged up and ready to go so we can stay in contact with our friends and family, we want to have things like chargers. We've got just your standard kind of chargers here that carry multiple day charges, and then we've got a car charger. You want to have cords just in case one breaks. Make sure that you have them for your type of phone. And then we have something that a lot of people think is a little unusual. We've got power strips, and that's in case you go somewhere, a friend or a family's home or a shelter where maybe there aren't as many outlets. And then we have this, which is a solar charger. So you power your phone through the power of the sun.
Which is incredibly important, because if you're without power for several days, you've got an unlimited supply from the sun.
Absolutely.
And so you can make sure that you can stay in communication with people that you need to be in communication with, and listen for emergency information too.
And there's one more thing that I would say to include is a thumb drive or a USB drive that you can put your important papers on.
All right, very good. Excellent information. Thank you, Eklund, for being with us. You can get all this information at click2houston.com. We've got a link to the American Red Cross website where you can pick up a lot of this stuff. Again, one-stop shopping.
Those hurricane kits are incredibly important when it comes to staying safe during and after a storm. There's a lot more information out there about safety. Some of my Channel 2 colleagues are going to take the next 3 minutes to offer up some tips that will help keep you and your property safe during a storm. They each get 30 seconds.
First up, insurance. Double check your coverage. Make sure you have homeowners or renters insurance. That'll cover water issues if it comes through a window or a leak. You'll need flood insurance to recover from rising water that may get inside your home. Now, that policy takes 30 days to kick in once you pay for it. So get it now. Even renters can get flood insurance, and you may want to consider windstorm and hail insurance as well. Take inventory of your belongings. You can take videos or pictures or even keep a written log.
Now your pets. I'm here with Tex to give you a look at his hurricane kit. Be sure to take leashes, a harness, water bowls, water, toys, food, any medication, and a bed if you can manage. If you have a cat, grab cat litter and double check their collars to make sure that the information is up to date.
Let's talk food. How long does food last in the refrigerator or freezer after you've lost power? According to the USDA, food can stay in your refrigerator for 4 hours if unopened. In your freezer, food can maintain a temperature for 48 hours if it's full, 24 if it's half full. But how do you know if you're away from home that you've lost power? Take a small bowl of water, freeze it, and put a penny on top. If you come back and the penny is inside of the ice or on the bottom, you've lost power.
Hurricanes can pack strong winds, even tornadoes. So you need to know the best place to go inside of your home to stay safe. Stay away from windows, skylights, and glass doors, even if they're covered. Stay on the first floor if possible and inside a small interior room without windows. This is often a bathroom or inside of a closet. Be sure to grab blankets and pillows to keep everyone comfortable and to cover your head if need be. It's also a good idea to have flashlights and a weather radio.
Your cell phone can quickly become your only lifeline in a storm, so it's important you keep it plugged in all throughout the storm. Also, you want to have one of these on hand, one of those portable charging devices. That way you can keep it charged if you were to be without power. Also, switch your phone to battery-saving mode. That can help you out. Another thing that's really cool these days, this has a way that you can charge. It has a USB port right there, and it's a crank, so you can charge your phone as well as providing a light.
While many of us have generators, there are a few things we want you to know before the season starts. While having a backup generator is the safer option, if you do have a portable generator, make sure you set it up outside the home, away from any windows and doors, and have it serviced. It's also a good idea to do a test run to make sure it's operational and continue those tests once a month throughout the season. Finally, make sure your generators have plenty of fuel.
All of that great information you can find in our Hurricane and Flood Guide online. Now, let's assume an evacuation order is issued for a storm. How do you know if that evacuation applies to you? And how do you get out of the area? Our Jennifer Reyna explains.
It doesn't happen often, but depending on the severity of a hurricane, it may be necessary to evacuate parts of the Houston-Galveston region. And that's why it's important to know your evacuation zone and how to properly evacuate.
We haven't seen a mass evacuation in the Houston area since Hurricane Rita, an evacuation many argue the area wasn't prepared to handle. An estimated 2.5 million people hit the road ahead of Rita's arrival, sparking the biggest gridlock in the area's history. More than 100 people died in that evacuation. That is why it's important to pay attention to the evacuation zones and only leave the area if you are advised to do so. Zones are identified by zip code, making it easy to know whether or not your neighborhood will be affected. The region has 4 areas based on level of threat from the storm surge: the coastal zone and zones A through C. Make sure you understand which, if any, hurricane evacuation zone you live in and which route you will take to get out. During an evacuation, inbound lanes of local freeways can be reversed to allow vehicles moving outbound to get out faster. This is known as contraflow. Most major freeways and highways heading away from the coast in the Houston area are designated evacuation routes, but it's important to know which is your best option depending on your evacuation plan. Be sure you are prepared to evacuate before a storm arrives. Here's a checklist. Make sure your gas tank is full. Prepare your vehicle for what could be a very long ride. Stock your vehicle with necessities such as water, food, pillows, blankets, toiletries, current maps, baby supplies, pet supplies, prescription medication, medication, flashlights, extra batteries, and cash. Bring proper identification and proof of residency, such as a driver's license, a utility bill, or rent receipt, in case you need Red Cross or FEMA assistance. Also, bring copies of key papers such as insurance policies. Many changes to evacuation plans have changed since Rita, but if you lived through it, you know the importance of having a plan for an evacuation.
Knowing when to evacuate or take cover is key. Still ahead, Channel 2 meteorologist Justin Stapleton takes you inside the National Weather Service Houston offices to share how the KPRC team works with them during a big weather event.
But first,
over half the fatalities in the inland flooding has been in automobiles. So we remind everybody, turn around, don't drown.
It's the phrase you hear over and over during flooding situations here in Southeast Texas. But if you do get stuck in floodwaters, there's important information that could save your life. Investigator Bill Spencer shows you what to do if you're trapped in floodwaters.
I would just go ahead and let my body fall backwards into the water.
The 4 steps to get out alive on clicktohouston.com/hurricane.
KPRC's Hurricane and Flood Survival Guide continues.
Unlike thunderstorms, hurricanes never combine to form one stronger storm. However, storms can circle each other, which is known as the Fujiwara effect. Another fact, hurricanes here in the northern hemisphere spin in a counterclockwise direction. In the southern hemisphere, tropical systems turn clockwise. As we saw during Hurricane Harvey, a lot of misinformation, including fake photos and videos, can be spread on social media. So when you and your family are preparing for a storm, and in the days afterward, reliable information can literally be the difference between life and death. Be sure to download the KPRC Hurricane app and bookmark clicktohouston.com/hurricane. On Facebook and Twitter, reputable sources are the National Hurricane Center, along with the National Weather Service's Houston office. The KPRC Severe Weather Team works closely with those agencies to keep you safe.
Because messaging is critically important during any tropical event, we decided to go to one of the most reliable voices in any kind of messaging for weather at the National Weather Service.
You can see some commonality there. GFS, the Euro, they all have kind of a band of precip on the coast.
They are the government organization tasked with keeping the public safe during big weather events.
We issue the watches and warnings, the flash flood warnings, the tornado warnings. They all come out of this office.
For the National Weather Service office in Dickinson, getting out the most accurate information quickly is very important and could mean the difference between life and death.
We're talking to the National Hurricane Center. We're taking that information, we're collaborating with them, and giving a detailed forecast for the Houston-Galveston area.
During recent flood events like Hurricane Harvey, there was a lot of information spreading quickly across social media. The problem is some of it was incorrect.
There's a lot of different sources out there on social media, many of them more rumor related. So we're always trying to set the information straight, make sure people get the information they need to protect themselves.
And that means it's very important to get your information from trusted social media sources.
Social media is a great way to get information, but I would really encourage people to look at trusted sources, official sources of information.
Such as the National Weather Service and, of course, the KPRC2 Weather Team.
Download the 2019 KPRC2 Hurricane and Flood Survival Guide on clicktohouston.com/hurricane. Print it and put it with your hurricane kit. Our guide has everything you need to keep yourself and your family safe this storm season. Our Hurricane and Flood Survival Guide continues with a special primetime edition of Houston Newsmakers with Cambrell Marshall. Cambrell sits down with Houston and county leaders in charge of the response when a disaster hits our area, what they've learned, and what's being done since Harvey. Remember, whether there's pouring rain, flash floods, or hurricanes, the KPRC Channel 2 Severe Weather Team will be here on air, on clicktohouston.com, and on social media to make sure you have the information you need to protect your family. Make sure you're ready to survive the storm by getting prepared now. We'll be here, and we'll get through it together.
Brought to you by Generator Industries and Moody Gardens Conservation Program.